Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our Gender Lens Investing workshop. It's our last Tuesday night workshop that we're doing as a part of Seattle Angel Conference 19. One of our goals with the Seattle Angel Conference has been to get to population representative demographics in our investor pool and in our entrepreneurs that are coming in. That's been a challenge we've been trying for years, and we'll hear more about how we did on this round here in the discussion. But we find that the process of engaging in angel investing is different as people move from community to community, and how people are engaging with each other is different in that process. And so we want to talk a little bit about the journeys. All of our speakers for tonight are people who have come through SAC and are interested in this question of how to make Seattle Angel Conference helpful in the process of creating new angel investors. And it'll help us understand the conversation if we know who else is in the room. So I'm going to go around the room and do brief introductions of who are you and what are you doing having this SAC conversation. And we'll go basically around the room, and I'll skip the panelists, and then we'll lean into the panelists at the end. So Martha, you want to go first?
I'm Martha Chamberlain, and I've been involved with SAC for most of the time, or the past few years. I'm always very interested in meeting people and meeting the companies and seeing what they're doing. It's a very interesting and thing to do, and a great opportunity to learn.
Thank you. Brandon, how about you?
Brandon Fleming. I am the CEO of a startup out of Fred Hutch. I'm excited to learn more about this topic. In a previous life, I was a professor of business studying gender-based discrimination in CFOs and CFO promotions.
Cool. Noel, how about you?
Hi, I'm Noel Gray. I'm a web developer and aspiring angel investor based in Portland. It's my first time around with SAC.
Okay, thank you very much. Tyler, how about you?
I'm a part-time professor at the University of Washington. I'm a founder of Micro AV, which is a combination of autonomous vehicles and micro vehicles. I've been PI on 5 SBRs, so I think that's the best way to go at this point.
Cool, thank you so very much. Elizabeth, how about you?
I'm Elizabeth Crossnickel. I've been involved with SAC. This is my third round, second time as a funder. I came in because I'm the CEO of a small startup looking at cardiac resuscitation and a drug device combination to prevent some sequelae from that. I've also been working with a small team of people to look at whether or not we should do a health specific SAC style conference, and therefore I've now been looking at a variety of other conferences that go on that are small angel investing, and I'm happy to be here tonight.
Thanks so very much. Rhonda, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Rhonda Patrick, Bellevue, Washington. I'm a new angel investor participating in SAC 19 and here to learn.
Thank you. Susan, how about you?
Hi, I'm Susan Blanchette. I'm the CEO of Originaire. I'm a Canadian from BC, and we use genetically modified plants, UVC light sterilization to clean indoor air in our air purifier, and our plants come from the University of Washington.
Cool, thank you so very much. Zia, how about you?
Hi everyone, I'm Zia Collentine, and first time participating in SAC on the investor side. Also work at an early stage startup, so I've been loving all these Tuesday night sessions, learning lots.
Cool, thank you. Keisha, how about you?
Hi, I'm an angel investor based out of New York City. I'm joining SAC for the second time, just nice to be a part of a second group with a different set of investors with a diverse background.
Yeah, diversity is in many different angles at SAC, that's for sure. Anya, how about you?
Hi, I'm Anya. I'm the founder and CEO of Twofold, and we make furniture, workspace furniture that works for you. This is my second time here with SAC, and I too have been enjoying all the different programs and what I'm learning.
Thanks so very much. Casey, how about you?
Hi there, my name's Casey. This is my first time here with SAC. I was previously a due diligence director at Keiretsu Forum, another angel group in the Seattle area. So I'm really excited to learn more about SAC's process and get to know you all.
Cool, thank you. Sashan, how about you?
Hi, my name is Hassan Pasha. I'm CEO founder of Sensor Drive Technology, Vancouver-based. Thanks for having us. This is my first time being involved with Seattle Angel Conference. I'm here to learn and also to hopefully present as one of the pitchers and engaging feedback.
Cool, thank you. Adam, how about you?
Hey team, I'm Adam Atherley. I'm a business and finance attorney at Carr Tuttle Campbell, which is a Seattle law firm. And we represent investors, startup companies, and funds. And we represent Seattle Angel Conference and the funds that invest from that conference.
Cool, thank you. Margie, how about you?
Hello, this is the first time I've been with Seattle Angel Alliance. I am the CEO and founder of Golden Sherpa. Our customer are senior living communities who are looking to save resources when they're finding leads to fill their empty beds. So we are opposite from a referral company. We're subscription based. We are Spokane company, and we're pretty excited about being here tonight. Thanks.
Cool, thank you. Alia, how about you?
Hello, everyone. My name is Aaliyah Aaron. I am a founder and CEO of Nursing Innovation Hub, and I apologize for not being on video quite late on my side. I'm on the East Coast, but I wanted to join in. It's my first time with Seattle Angel Conference. I am acting as a proxy investor to just really understand the conference and get to know John and the team. And I'm very happy to be here, and I look forward to participating as well as participating in upcoming conferences as an investor. Nurse Innovation Hub is a health tech innovation company. We support and accelerate nurse-led technology solutions and healthcare innovators.
Cool, thank you. Dennis, how about you?
Hey, hello everybody. This is Dennis Lee from Seattle. I'm actually a participant in this 619 or so investor. So it'll be very good to actually know everybody on this conference through this workshop and everything happening with this coming 3 months. So myself actually represent several companies. Actually, I work with several founders. They have different background, different kind of industry they are getting into. So it's good to hear from all the participants today, trying to see that what's going on with all these topics that we're going to address today. So good to know everybody.
Thank you. Dan, how about you?
Hey everybody, I'm Dan Dillinger. I'm an investor. This is my second SAC. I work for SAP Enterprise Software Company and am based in Seattle.
Cool, thank you. Wadad, how about you?
Hello, my name is Vidad Mashmushi and I'm an investor with SAC. This is my third round and I'm looking forward to kind of getting to know all the new companies and new investors joining this round.
Cool, thank you. Stuart, how about you?
Hey, John. Yeah, I am Stuart Marshall. I'm one of the founders of BeThere.ai. We are developing an IoT product to help adult children stay connected with and know that their senior parents who are living alone are doing fine. I'm interested in understanding and learning more about the investment community in general, and I'm very excited about tonight's topic. I think it's an awesome one.
Cool. Thank you so much. Karen, how about you?
Oops. Hi, I'm Karen Howlett. This is my first time at SAC 19. We've been doing some angel investing for a couple years, and looking forward to continuing to learn more.
Cool. Thanks so very much. As was suggested by Elizabeth, if you want to meet other people that are on this call, if you put your LinkedIn into the chat, you'll be able to find each other. That can be useful. We have several people who have been stalwart for us in terms of participating in SAC and helping us with this goal of population representation. And we frame that in this talk as gender because we've been able to make progress around gender. And that doesn't mean that that's the only motion that we're making. And so the whole effort around underrepresented groups that are part of our local community but are not part of our angel community is something that we're paying attention to. We're just not making as much progress in other groups as we are with gender. And so I would like to start with Julie. Could you introduce yourself and talk a little bit about your SAC journey?
Sure.
The short version.
Thanks, John. Okay, cut me off if I go too long. My name is Julie Schlosser. I'm based in Seattle. I've been moved here from the East Coast about 5.5 years ago. And my career, I started as a financial journalist at Fortune in New York. And at a very young age, I got to kind of travel around Silicon Valley looking at startups. And I kind of called myself an armchair VC at the time, but I was just kind of learning the ropes. Is that my audio or is that someone else? Anyway, thanks, John. I went on to found my own company and I never raised funds. And I kind of hit a point where, multiple points where I should have and I didn't. And when I paused my company, I said, one of the things I want to do is help more female founders navigate the fundraising process. Because even though I was a financial journalist, I really didn't know at the time how it worked. And I regretted not doing it. And so about 3 years ago, Nicole, who was on this panel, told me about SAC and we went and heard about what, we went to a final, I think it must have been like round 16. And I joined the next round and we got a few other friends to join. And I've loved the experience and I've learned so much thanks to John and Martha and a lot of folks who are on this call, Elaine. It's been quite fun and eye-opening in terms of the gender lens. I've funded several female founders, but I've gone much broader than that, and I've been trying to go through a more sustainability lens as well, and trying to fund companies that are focused on making money, but also doing things that will help the environment. So those are kind of have been my priorities, and really enjoying it. So excited about being on this panel and looking forward to working with some of you as investors in the next round and hearing your pitches if you're founders. So thanks for having me on, John.
Cool. Thank you so much. Nicole, I'm going to have you go next and sort of tell your recruitment story.
Sure. So I actually got involved also through another woman that you might hear her, I don't think she's on tonight, but Yoko Okano, who now runs her own VC with Minda Bruce, who both are alums of SAC. Both of them were fund managers previously. And so Yoko and I went to the same college and we'd known each other in the community. And she said, hey, I think you'd be really interested in angel investing. We're looking for more women. And that was sort of how it happened. And then I recruited Julie and she recruited Karen, and there's a bunch of us now that are part of the crew. But yeah, I think part of it is just, for me, has always been a passion of helping other women. And that's been when I look at angel investing, I don't specifically only invest in women by any means, but it's definitely a lens in which I look at making sure that people that don't have typically access to capital, I think that's something that I can help change, and that's something that I really am passionate about. SAC's been great. It's if you're a brand new investor, it's the best way, I think, to start in Seattle and really get your feet wet and learn about all the different investing groups. You'll notice that basically alums from SAC are in every single angel group in town, and that's because it's a great training ground to get your training wheels and then go on and do either continue a SAC and then add, or if you're ready to write larger checks at that point, a lot of times people will move on. My background is I worked in corporate America for many years in general management and marketing roles, and then I was attempting to start my own business in the beginning of COVID, and I was right about to manufacture product. Luckily, I did not manufacture product because that's now on pause due to everything that's going on. So yeah, that's my story. I would really highly recommend it, and it's also great for entrepreneurs. I've recommended the program to a number of entrepreneurs as well, particularly if you're still sort of getting all your stuff together. It really gets you to have a tight package. And what's nice about SAC, I'd say that's very different than other angel investing groups that I've sort of learned about, is that it's also incredibly collaborative and people want you to win. So as an investor, it's not a combative relationship. In fact, it's completely the opposite. Everybody really wants your best interest at heart and wants you to be able to be successful. And that's why we're here. So with that, I think I'll let you move on.
Yeah, thanks so much. That's good. And speaking of fund manager, Chelsea, can you go into your experience at SAC and your professional contexts?
Sure. I came into SAC just because I wanted to find out more about the startup community. I didn't really know what angel investing was. So SAC was an amazing crash course for kind of learning all aspects of that, including the fund management side. I still haven't done anything with this other than, participate in SAC. I've done that I think I've done it 5 times now. Haven't taken the fund management aspect anywhere, but I find it really interesting, and just continue to kind of think about that when I'm working. And so my role is, I work for IBM now, but I was at Microsoft for about a decade. I work in the cloud space. And so, in the cloud space, obviously you come across a ton of different companies, and it's just been really cool to kind of see how the little companies utilize that and just expand beyond that. Yeah, so that's kind of my story, and it's been a great learning experience. Can't hear you, John.
Yeah, trying to protect your echo, and then I'm on. So can you talk a little bit about the differences, the experience of being the fund manager versus being a participant?
Sure. Yeah, so I think for me, I didn't really know what the fund manager role was going to be until I kind of got into it. I didn't really think too hard about it. I just was like, yeah, that sounds like something I can do. And so it turns out that there's a lot more on the back end in terms of getting things set up. Fortunately, we have a ton of people that can support on that. So you start out as the assistant and get to kind of see it, first time. You don't have to necessarily do it. You get somebody to kind of help you learn the ropes. And then the second time around, it's a little bit more in depth in terms of you're thinking about structuring the deal. When I've been a participant, I usually am doing more like the due diligence process. So you don't kind of participate quite in the same way for SAC. Now, that may not be true in the VC world, but I do like how it's kind of structured and broken out at SAC to allow you to focus on the 2 different kind of aspects you might need to learn about.
So just so that I say it out loud, since we have companies here, we separate the role of evaluating, is this a good company, from the role of evaluating, is this a deal that we can do? And the good company part is done by the bulk of the investors, and the is this a deal that we can do is done by the LLC manager. And so you have very different perspectives about the questions you're asking along the way. And going with questions that you're asking along the way, Elaine is our data geek who likes to do lots and lots of data stuff, and has helped us a lot with sort of tracking how do we fit into this thing in terms of how our gender has been mix has been going, how our company and investment style compares to other angel groups in the area. So could you go a little bit deeper, Elaine, both about your background, your engagement with SAC, and then the data you've been collecting about the angel groups for a little bit, please?
Oh, you bet. Thanks, John. I'm so excited to be here with all of you and the our fellow panelists today. Elaine Werfley, 25-year veteran at Microsoft in the data and analytics space. And while I was still at Microsoft, it was Jeff Harris, who was the fund manager for SAC 8. So I've been with SAC, this will be my 11th SAC as an investor. And I love the interaction. I love seeing new investors come in, grow, and leave to different parts of the ecosystem. And I learned something new every time. And it just really started getting my juices flowing to know more about the startup community. So on my 25th anniversary, I took a deep plunge, left Microsoft, and actually was a co-founder in a data analytics startup, but continued my night job of being an angel investor. And around 2017, I said, you know, one of the things I learned from data analytics is you don't, if you don't have a goal, you won't reach it. And if you don't measure it, you certainly won't reach that either. So I started volunteering to obtain actual data from the angel groups here in town within our ecosystem to understand every year what size checks are they writing, how many investors they have, and what part of the space they're in and concentrating in. And in 2017, asked for one more piece of data, which is what is the gender makeup of your angel group? And we have been tracking that since 2017. And as John said, one of the goals of SAC has been to see if we could get to a gender 50-50 split. Here in the area, usually the top group in town has between a 30-35% female representation that we've seen. And so, John, I'm not going to steal your thunder. Why don't you go ahead and share what the numbers are that you and Kate and Wes and the whole team have been able to recruit this round?
Actually, I was happy to let you run with that. Please do.
Okay, so I'm totally thrilled to be able to share with you today that the team putting together SAC 19 has been able to achieve a 50-50 split on female-male investors. It's a first for Seattle Angel Conference, and really it's a first for Seattle. It's such a fantastic milestone to move forward with. For me, I'm super excited about it from a standpoint of, John, could you mute? Thanks. Super excited from a standpoint of making sure that entrepreneurs who come in can see and relate to investors on the other side of the table. I, like Nicole, don't exclusively invest in female founders, but I wholeheartedly believe that diversity in an angel group helps in terms of getting to a more likely funding a great investment. So I believe super strongly that the 50-50 split gender within a team helps us as a group, it helps bring different perspectives, different voices, and different interests. So being able to have that on this side of the table, we welcome all the entrepreneurs that are interested to come to pitch for SAC 19. And we look forward to being on a journey with you.
Thank you so much. Let me take a short break. Rami, would you quickly introduce yourself?
Yeah, absolutely. My name is Remy. I'm a principal engineer at Microsoft, and I am an angel investor with the SAC for this fund. I mostly work on machine learning and user experience, so happy to help any startups in that space looking for help with that.
Cool. Thank you. And Tom, would you introduce yourself?
Yeah, my pleasure. My name is Tom Thomas. I'm the founder and CEO of Votegrity. We're bringing the ballot box to the voter in an online world.
Cool. And Elaine, you are the most stalwart of our investors. You've been with us, engaged deeply for the longest. Can you talk a little bit about how that experience has changed over time for you? You know, as you're in this room and we've got 23% women, and now it's, you know, 35% or 44%, because we have done 44% in the past. How does that play out?
In terms of the ability for, I think, the group to be able to have a wider diversity and larger conversations. So I would say one of the things that I think is important, and sometimes I'm able to do the Angel one-on-one class, there's always so much to learn in this space. And I think one of the important things coming in as a new investor is to learn from your peers. So it has been a great place for me to learn and learn with whoever comes in. And one of the big things that honestly, it took me a while to figure out, and so I try and make sure I lay it out in any one-on-one that I do, is diversification. Diversification of your portfolio is key. As John says, I'm a total data geek. So I look for data wherever I can find it in the space, and we don't actually have a lot, but there is a couple of things that we do rely on to help improve our chances. And one of those is to being able to do due diligence and a good amount of due diligence. And that's one of the reasons why I choose to be in an angel group instead of invest individually, because I have a day job. And so it's great to be able to rely on the breadth and experience of whoever is in the crew with us on whichever conference. And that is, John, as you'd see over time, is always different, and that's part of the fun. When we actually used to meet in person, there's a very different vibe on those that investors on the East Side and investors in Seattle, and it makes one of the reasons why I love to do both. So the diversification is key. And what's nice about that is diversifying your portfolio, but then diversifying the interests and expertise that we have within SAC has allowed us, I think, to have a much more diverse portfolio set, honestly, as well. Recently, I'd say in the last couple of years, we've seen more bio and medical than we did in the beginning, right? So it's kind of, I don't want to sound cheesy, but the reflection of who we are as a group, I think, comes out in who makes the finals. I don't know, Julie, would you agree to that, or Chelsea, Nicole?
Yeah.
Over?
Two things, Elaine. One, I first of all, Elaine was what motivated me and Nicole to sign up the first time. We saw her speak and give her data presentation, which if you get a chance to see that in the coming weeks, I think she's probably going to do a session for this group. It's really impressive to see the data up there. But one of the things that I think is really important, especially for new investors, is to remember that your professional background, I mean, even if you're not coming from software or banking or something where you would have what you think would be the expertise, your professional background will be impactful, especially when you get to the due diligence. So whether you're like a scientist, a marketing expert, a consumer product expert, you know, all these different backgrounds coming together and kicking the tires once we get to that final round, and early on as well, independently. But having that mix of people is what I think gets us to the best companies, or it should get us to the best companies most of the time. So so I think if you see it as a weakness that you don't have a certain expertise, please don't, and please know that your opinion and your expertise will be valued within this group.
Absolutely. So I find, sorry, I find in terms of my work that if I go to a random group of people and it's mostly men, the amount of work that it takes for me to recruit someone out of that group is substantially less than if I go to a group of women to do that. I mean, like maybe a factor of 4 times as much work to get that to go. And that doesn't really go down a lot when the person from SAC that's doing it is a female. So I don't think it's about me. I think it's about how women think about this thing called angel investing. And I wonder if any of you have any sort of, you know, the first time this came across my bow and I became aware of it, what made you lean in? And what was it about what you were engaging that made that work? And why do you think that overall effort might be different between different collections of people? And I'd like to sort of rely on you, Julie, for that, since you have this journalistic perspective.
Well, it's funny. I feel like it's shifted from my original reason to sign up. One of the things I've done, and I've done it somewhat professionally and also just organically in the area, is mentoring a lot of others, women and men in business and various parts of life, from like the Starbucks barista who I end up mentoring all of them. And I've always felt really good about that. But I heard a founder speak last week, and she said, women are over-mentored and underfunded. And so I'm kind of coming at it with a new lens this session, because often we mentor the female founders and we offer, and the male founders, but then we don't write the check. And so I think putting our dollars where our support is and where we see good opportunities is so key. And I think, I don't have any stats right now, but I've read several stories and I've talked to enough people that women are feeling this more than men. Female founders is too much mentoring and too little investing. So something that we should be aware of going forward.
Julie, that's so ironic that you say that. I was just having the conversation like 4 hours earlier today with someone saying, I think in general, we need more sponsorship. It's easier for people to mentor, not as easy to sponsor. Sponsor being proactive, being out there, standing up in the room, you know, saying who you're believing in and why, those type of things. And so I couldn't agree with you more. I think mentorship's great. It's not that we shouldn't mentor, but I think coming out from behind the closed doors to being active in both what we say, how we show our support, both from a decision perspective and our checkbooks, is important.
And adding to Elaine's point too, I mean, one of the things the female founders I've worked with have found is just getting that first check. So let's say they go through SAC and they don't win, but you still want to support them. You know, that first check attracts more checks. So if you think that as a former journalist, I can't write huge checks. I wasn't at a pre-IPO company. So even if it's a small check, just having that ability to go to the next investor and say, I just got funded from this person, or, you know, I have X number of funders, is helpful in their journey. And so don't be afraid if your checks are small, it's still valuable.
Well, I was going to say, one of the most powerful things, I've talked to a lot of female founders who particularly want to have more female angels, because women haven't been traditionally, as we've talked about, in angel investing, the checks tend to be smaller. And so one of the ways that, you know, a number of women I know, if is they do syndicates, right? They'll have people come together. So you get that mentorship, but it comes with money and real connections and things that can get you bigger checks. So like people will pull together, like for example, out of SAC last time, there was a founder that a number of us really liked and decided we were going to do a sidecar deal, which basically means we get together and we pool resources, right? And she was going to get at least $100,000. So that's another way of getting, like, if you wanted a minimum of 50 or 100, but you want to bring along certain people that you think that are going to, female or male, that you think they're going to be helpful for you. That's a great way of doing it. And getting that sort of that coaching, but with money attached to it.
So I want to dive a little bit deep on that. So if I think I'm accredited and I'm worth $1 million and I need to be in 20 deals to make it probable that I'm going to succeed in this, then I should be, taking 10% of my net worth if I'm adventurous, maybe less if I'm not adventurous. And I divide that by 20. So $1 million, 10%, 100,000 divided by 20 is $5,000 a piece. There's a reason that SAC is a $5,000 unit. And so we teach that process of creating the syndicate, and that's what Chelsea did when she formed the LLC to drive that process. But I believe that 80% of the people that are accredited are below 5 million in net worth. And they should, following that same math, never write a standalone 25K check. So most people should not be writing single $10,000, $50,000 checks. The people that are accredited should be writing these smaller checks. And I would argue that somebody who's worth $2 or $3 million should be writing 40 checks at 5,000 instead of 20 checks at 10,000, because the probability that that's going to succeed is really significantly increased in my view.
Diversification.
Most of the people, diversify in the pre-seed stage. It's measurable that diversification outperforms doubling down. So in the first round of funding, you should go wide, not deep. Maybe a Series A, down, saving 60% money for your winner is a good thing. But at a pre-seed level, going wide is the right answer as far as the data that I've been able to see. The other thing that comes with that syndication is these people are bound together for the duration of the investment, and they have a reason to talk to each other. And therefore, there's a reason why that collaboration can be used to leverage knowledge into the startup. And so when the startups do a good job of engaging the syndicate, they can actually benefit because, 40 minds have more information in them than one mind has in it. And so you can get more introductions, you can get more pattern recognition about whatever this weird thing that's happening to you is. But I want to go back to this syndicate. Being quiet about the fact that you created a syndicate and investing with money is not nearly as good as being loud about the fact that you just did that and doing that sponsorship thing and telling people about it. So putting a brand on your syndicate and waving the flag and saying, we did that one, really helps spread the word. That's not a thing we see a lot of. We've had this pipeline fellowship thing that was specifically aimed at training female investors. I cannot tell you where the pipeline flag is these days. I do not see people making loud statements about we're making these investments. I see Female Founders Alliance being loud about their engagement in the world, but I don't see it from the angels. Is there something that we as SAC alumni can be doing that would sort of up the profile of these side deals that you're talking about? I'm going to pick on you, Nicole.
I'm not sure. I haven't really thought about that, to be honest with you. It's not something I've given a lot of thought to. I think I probably have to think about it a little bit. And I don't know if, I think it's sometimes the entrepreneur is, oh, sorry, it's really echoey.
Sorry.
I was going to say, sometimes the entrepreneur, from my experience at least, because they're trying to get to their next round and hit their milestones, are a little bit leery about, obviously they want to muddy their cap table, which is why the syndicate's very appealing for them. But I'm not sure how much of them are actually sort of marketing that they're doing syndicates. I don't know. It's an interesting concept. I don't have a good answer. That's my answer.
And I think we
Okay.
market it internally, or we market it to the folks in our networks and try to get more folks into these syndicates, but we're not promoting it per se on LinkedIn or in the press.
Right. It's
It's
very
so
organic
small.
right now. Yeah, it's very organic and very word of mouth. So maybe there is an opportunity to do, but I'm not sure if people would want to have it be more vocal. I think there's a little bit of a, I don't know. I have to think about that.
I think from an entrepreneur perspective, knowing that there might be the ability to get more than well, I don't want to say winner, more than one check, right? Everybody who goes through SAC is a winner because they have the ability to find like fit, like minds, connections. But in terms of a check, if the entrepreneurs know that there is the ability for more than one check also coming out, it makes all of the work that they have to do that much more probable, I guess I'd say, I think. And it's, I think there's been, I don't know, John, how many times has there been a finalist fund where investors get the opportunity to diversify, that golden word again, their investment across a number of finalists, but also where more finalists come out with a check. And I think what Julie kind of said is kind of important. That first check is really, really, really hard. It's the second check, the third check, the fourth check are infinitely easier than that first check. And so if we as an organization have a little bit of ability to spread the love, I guess, a little bit, I think that helps everybody involved.
So we're in SAC 19, but we're in 49 investments so far. And so we've done a bunch of side deals of one kind or another. And sometimes those side deals are bigger than what the check was from SAC, right? So we've had people like double their money by losing and not getting even into the finals, and they got more money than the winners did in the syndicate. But we do intend for there to be opportunities for other people to invest. And one of the things that we have seen happen recently is the finalist fund attracts people who didn't participate as investors in SAC, but were paying attention to the fact that it was happening. So again, being loud about the fact that you're participating in this thing and that things are happening draws other people to the conversation. And then if you open the door at the last minute and say, if you want to be part of this too, then you start widening the circle that help people go with that. So being a data person, Elaine, we have just crossed the threshold in the United States where we have 50+% of the wealth in the United States is owned by women. But we have the famous of female founders are getting only 3% of the VC dollars. So I'd sort of like to sort of stir that pot a little bit and see, when we have 50% of the wealth sitting there in the hands of women, that women-owned wealth does not seem to be finding its way into VCs that are writing checks. And I want to be clear that VCs and angels are like two different beasts completely, even though both of them are venture capital. But what's your take on that set of information I just?
Yeah, there's a couple different, if I unpack what you said, there's a couple different things there. And I know Julie's got a great story that she can kind of dive in on part of this. I think one of the hypotheses I have is that I think and I'm going to make broad generalizations, and I'm sure you guys can jump all over everything I'm going to say, but I'll put it out there just to, as John says, stir the pot and start the conversation. I think women might be more comfortable with philanthropy than investing as an angel, right? And part of that, I think, comes from the fact that, you know, we've grown up with the what's the word, that ability to give, right? The ability to say there's something greater than myself, and that we should save some of our money and give to charities that we care about. You know, that's a pretty universal kind of concept. But a lot of angel investors come from winning the entrepreneur game. So they've done their startups on themselves. They've been able to have an exit. They may go back. They may have been an acqui-hire, but they have some excess cash, and they're paying it forward back into investing back into startups and that startup world they know. And so when you think about the fact that there's really only 20% of the entrepreneurs who are being funded are women. And then you think about the fact that, well, how many of those startups, since about 70% of startups fail, make it to that they're the ones that are the CEOs, that are the exits, that escalate to come back to make this flywheel that they can then sit on the other side of the investor table. So that was not my path to become an investor. And so I think part of when I try and speak with other women is to help them feel comfortable that it is okay for you to not know anything about angel investing, that we can help. And we can help in SAC in terms of rolling up your sleeves and be able to understand the process. And if it's not through once and you've got more questions and you go through twice, it's a learning by doing exercise that we do here. And from that standpoint, to be able to say, again, it's okay if you don't have the regular path, and it's okay if you haven't done it before. That's why in SAC, we try and marry each time. Like half new investors, half returning investors, so that we can share and mix up the pot. Again, diversity of thought. So from my perspective, I think in broad strokes that the females have been less likely to have taken that path. And so that is why the numbers of our investor side have been smaller. And it is one of the reasons I'd like to see more female angel investors, because I think that it becomes a flywheel that helps both sides. The other piece that you talked about was the VC money. VC money, you know, we're thrilled here today to say 50-50. I can't even imagine when you'd put the stake in the ground to say 50-50 in the VC community. You know, it's hovering on good days, somebody might say 5%. On actual days, they might say 3% of VCs have the female representation, right? So when we get further along in the stages of funding, you know, that support, seeing someone like you on the other side of the table is a lot less. So that's why, from my perspective, you know, in that sponsorship spirit, I think it's my job to kind of put myself out there as much as I can to make sure that those in our community who are looking for a place to pitch their great ideas and start on their funding journey, that we can see them.
I was just going to add to that a little bit, Elaine. Actually, there's a New York Times article, I think from like 2 years ago, that actually literally showed the dots in Silicon Valley from founders that had exited that then funded the next round of big companies, like the big crazy IPO companies in Silicon Valley. So for sure, that's a legitimate thing. And I think you're exactly right. There are other funding mechanisms. Actually, John had forwarded us an email from someone about an organization called CEO, which I used to belong to, which was, you know, basically give $1,100 each person, you know, and then they basically fund companies, but you don't have a stake in the companies. And so to Elaine's point, I think what I realized pretty quickly is like, that's wonderful, but that's philanthropy, and that's something different than being invested in a company. And you know, similar to like Elaine, my background, I went, you know, when I went and got my MBA, there was like 25% women. So I think this is an asset category that some people feel a little intimidated by. And they feel more comfortable potentially in these other areas. And again, these are crazy stereotypes. So like this is not going to really apply to everyone by any means, but I do think that there's something to that. But I think the more women that we get involved, the better it'll be for everyone longer term. Because I think it is something, even as, you know, as a female founder, when I was going out and talking to people, you know, and I wasn't seeking investment at the time, I was self-funding, but, you know, I even talked to a couple of VC, and it was just interesting because it was like, when I would talk to them, it's like, oh, well, my wife, or what, you know, it was sort of like bringing in a woman that wasn't in the room to have a conversation about what I was doing in my business. It was very strange. So I think that's a pretty common experience. So I have another friend that's funding a grocery concept, and it's like, well, if my wife says it's okay, then I'm going to say it's good. And it's sort of like that seems a little bit mind-boggling in 2021. But anyway, I know, Julie, you've got a good anecdote.
Yeah.
I'm not exactly sure which anecdote you're talking about, but I think a lot of it is structural. I mean, the data shows that women are more risk averse, they hold more in cash, but how much is that based, again, you know, back on history? And I think we could see the same thing for other groups when we're talking diversity, the diversity lens. So these structural changes, it will take time. And the more of us that angel invest, the more of us that become full-blown VCs, you know, things will change. It's just going to take a long time. I posted in the chat, if this is what you guys are talking about, a study. It's a year old from Harvard Business Review, and I'm just going to read you the highlight in there. It says, research from 2017 found that women are asked different questions than men when pitching to VCs. Across 180 entrepreneurs and 140 VCs at the TechCrunch competition, men were consistently asked more promotion questions like highlighting upside, potential gains, while women were asked more preventative questions like highlighting potential losses, risk mitigation, and background, personal background on their end. So, and it's funny, this has come up recently with several founders who are raising at a much higher level. They're further along than the companies we'll be looking at. But one female founder said to me last week, you know, I just don't talk with the big vision. Like I end up getting these questions where I'm talking about what I've done, my experience, that sort of thing, when the men are getting the questions that I'm up against, talking about how they're going to scale and, you know, these big visionary things. And that was her personal goal, was this year as she's fundraising, to be able to have those comments and be able to kind of turn the conversation so she's able to talk that way. And she thinks it will have a much better impact.
And Julie, just to kind of follow up again in that conversation I was having earlier today, again, I don't want to offend anyone, but I think one of the comments that had been made is that in general, male CEOs are really good at faking it till they make it, in terms of kind of telling some of those bigger, bolder stories. And some of the things in terms of our gender stereotypes that we've been taught to do, we're just not as comfortable doing that. And as a CEO, you're a CEO because you have vision. You're a CEO because you have big dreams, and you should be big and bold to talk about them, and no matter who you are, right? And hopefully here at SAC, you have that, you know, the space to do that.
Agree. And again,
so I don't have data. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say that there's so many there's amazing men, I'm sure, in this room, and too, this is not everyone we're talking about. There's so many talented and open-minded investors who are supporting these female founders. So I just want to be careful when I'm saying this. These are kind of more general stats and historic stats that we're looking at, and hopefully this is just going to change over time with folks like you kind of pushing for this cause.
So I don't have the data that Elaine would like, and perhaps we can get someone to do the data collection. But my experience is that we don't have 50% of the companies coming in being female-led, but that we frequently have the finalists being 50-50 on female. And so I think that there's a certain amount of willingness to rush in on the part of men and a certain needing it to be better on the part of women. So the women that do come in tend to be a little bit further along. And so we tend to see them getting further in the program. This is a feeling more than data. But I think that there's a certain amount of engaging in that, you know, getting everything lined up that's worthwhile for everyone to spend time on. Did you have a thought, Tom? No? Chelsea, you've been quiet, so I'm gonna see if we can engage you in this. You have experienced both the east side, the west side, and the virtual. Does that change how women are engaged with in SAC?
East side, west side, I'm not sure it does. I think that it does in terms of, you know, the virtual has made it a lot easier to attend. So I think maybe you saw my daughter pop in and say hello. You know, I'm a, you know, single mom, and I'm at home with my daughter, and it's way easier for me to participate in that regard. So, you know, it's nice to be able to have that access and be able to do this virtually.
Yeah, so I think that one of the things that slows women down from participating in angel investing is they've got other duties that they're paying attention to at a higher priority. And that if you get rid of the commute and you get rid of some of the other things and make things a little more asynchronous, that the angel investing becomes more possible. So I think that virtual actually is likely to help us get more effective female participation at the angel level. That's my guess. Mostly because we can push things into being a little more asynchronous along the way. Any questions that people want to bring onto the table now that we've hit 7 o'clock?
I just have a comment. So I was a lawyer for 14 years prior to leaving to become an entrepreneur, and I didn't know about any of this. So maybe the angel investing community has to hit up some high income female that don't know about it's a whole new world. So that could be a way to get, I know there's a lot of women I work with that have a lot of money that would probably like to try something like this out.
Yeah,
I think
if
I
you
could
have any
add
particular ideas how we can reach the 99% of people who are accredited but don't write checks, I'm all ears. I would love to hear it. But we're making as much noise as we know how to at the moment. Maybe anything. So go ahead. Somebody else was speaking.
Oh, I was just going to say, I've tried to recruit a few friends over the years, and it definitely resonates more with men than it does women. And I haven't quite put my finger, and these are, you know, friends I've had for many, many years. They're just, it's not their thing. And I haven't been able to put my finger on why, because we all work in very similar space. Some are more technical, some are less technical, and it totally seems their wheelhouse. And it's not their thing.
I would like to put a hypothesis together for you, Chelsea. I posted into the chat the video of our become an impact venture capitalist by using donor advised funds. So when you do philanthropy, you get a negative 100% return on your money. So if you do something that has some kind of return, even if it's minus 50% return, is better than minus 100% return. And so following Elaine's hypothesis that women are more likely to be philanthropic, you can mention angel investing as regenerative philanthropy, where you invest in these companies through a donor advised fund. If the angel thing wins, you get more money back in your fund, so you can do more philanthropy. And see if after they say, no, I don't do angel investing, see if they'll do regenerative philanthropy.
I suspect there's another theory there, because if you knew these women, you would know that that is not their problem. So there's got to be something else as well.
I'm mostly doing this.
There's got to be something else as well.
I'm mostly doing this tongue in cheek. Still, I think that's a pathway for some group of people. Wadad, you had a thought?
I wonder, like with what Chelsea said, do these women also have the same attitude towards like stock market investing? Like, is it the investing component of it where like, are they more risk averse, or is it more around angel investing or like a kind of VC funding type of thing?
As far as I can tell, it's more around, I think it's probably the risk, because they will invest in the stock market. So, but yeah, I think that's probably it. And so maybe figuring out how to tell that story in a different way would be good.
But it is very risky. So, I mean, to their credit, this is not for the faint at heart. I mean, this is, and I don't like to mix it up with philanthropy. I don't like to mix it up with philanthropy. Sorry, I'm echoing, John. Can you? Thanks. There's no reason you can't be doing both if you have, I don't want to say that I'm taking what I would put in philanthropy out of that and putting into this. This is a separate, in my mind, this is a very separate category, and I don't think of this as charity. So hopefully we have appetite for both.
I was going to say, you also have to be in this for the long haul, right? Because these are early stage companies. If you're investing at this stage, like you're not going to see a return if you're lucky for probably 10 years. So you have to know that going into it, saying, okay, like you have to make sure that you have enough assets to say, I can put to really do this, to John's point, whether you agree with the premise of, 5,540 investments, or you say, okay, I'm going to allocate 100,000, I'm going to do 5,000 or 35 in another group, and then, a couple individual checks, however you want to allocate your funds. Like you do, if you want to actually make money on this, you're going to have to eventually be investing enough that you can, and know that, again, it's a long slog. You're in this for a while. And I'm thrilled to do it. And I think it's a great way to really diversify your portfolio. And more importantly to me, like there's so many other benefits that Elaine and Julie and Chelsea and we've all talked about, right? The camaraderie, the networking, the meeting all of these different entrepreneurs. There's a lot of other benefits, but I think realistically, the investment takes a long time.
Yeah. Yeah. And Nicole, it is true. There's so much that in terms of all the things that I've gotten out of this, it's amazing. But to Susan's point, I don't think that we've probably screamed loud enough to enough rooftops to be able to be like, oh yeah, angel investing is a thing that, even half the people who could do it think about. And being able to kind of talk about all of those things that we got out of it. I don't know, John, I know we try and talk about it everywhere we can, but I'm sure there's more we could be doing. So I think I do think
I'm sure there is too.
When we think about, well, where did we hear about it? I came from a clueless place. I didn't know, and again, so Susan, I think you're spot on. And the question is how do we make it more viral? So as we grow the investor community, that you go off to graduate into other places, other angel groups, and you bring 10 investors with you, men, women, whomever can come, right? And they tell 10 friends, and they tell 10 friends, right? So we try and increase the volume, but I do think you're spot on. I think probably one of our largest things we need to overcome is awareness.
So one of the things that we can do in terms of moving gender is to engage spouses to bring their spouses. So we see Noel in the chat talking about he wished that he had invited his wife to this conversation. Julie, can you talk a little bit about your journey into being more fiscally aware than you were before that gets up?
Sure. I think John's referring to when I mean, even though I was a reporter, a financial reporter, and had a master's in international relations with a focus on economics, I still was not looking at my portfolio, and I wasn't focused on it on a personal front. And I had just had my second child, and my husband had scheduled a meeting with a money management firm. We were living on the East Coast at that point, and I think I was just home from the hospital, you know, a couple of days, and I said, you go and tell me what happens, and you know, we'll talk about it. And it was a female advisor, and she refused to meet with us until both of us went. And so she said, no, we can wait, you know, until she can come. And I thought that was such a smart thing, and it really got me engaged in our portfolio and taking a hands-on role in it. And now I manage all those meetings, and I've learned so much. So, you know, encouraging what she did, she's now retired, but what she did was so helpful. And could have been a male advisor saying the same thing, that if it's a couple's money he's investing, you know, let's meet with both of them. So I thought that's something for the men in this group too, to like, you know, make sure your wife's on that call with your money manager or involved in these discussions, or bring her to the first evening. You know, if you're investing together and she wasn't planning to come, bring her to the first SAC meeting and see if she likes it. Something basic like that.
Yeah, couples are welcome for sure.
Yeah, and I do have to say, I want to give a ton of credit to, there have been a number of men who I have learned from and have supported us in this journey, like Javier and David and Alan. And it's not just a women's thing. You know, it's an us thing. And so the more the merrier.
So we've had all combinations of spouses. We've had them, one comes and then the other one watches the kids, and then they swap every week. We've had they both come and they sit together and they share one boat. We have them both come and they sit far apart. They both have a share and they don't talk to each other. We've had them both come and they both get shares, but they talk to each other, and then they vote against each other as they go. So all of those things have happened, all possible combinations. So bringing a spouse in can help spread that. I would like to ask Julie, do you think that your angel investing came out of the fact that you had more active engagement in your stock market activity?
I actually don't, to be quite honest. For me, it was more running my own company for several years, and seeing folks get funded with tons of money and then go under in a short time. And we were bootstrapped, and realizing that I should have had the nerve to go out and raise funds. That was really kind of the impetus for me. And having, as a journalist, seeing kind of what happens on Sand Hill Road up close, which obviously most people are not going to see, unless maybe now there's a couple shows based on that world. But just getting to know kind of high level venture capitalists and seeing that, like, they weren't that different from me, you know, they were much wealthier, but they had just chosen to go into this field, and they were picking companies, they were picking winners, and because they had a lot of money behind it, they were able to really impact the market. So kind of that viewpoint.
Chelsea, when you were the fund manager and you were trying to recruit women into the role, because that's been a goal that I've been pushing for a while, were your conversations different from when you talk to women versus when you talk to men? Did they ask different questions? Did they engage in the question differently in some way?
I'm trying to remember some of the conversations. I would say that men were more liable to want to have a conversation, even if they ultimately didn't do it. And women just tended to be like, no, I don't think I want to do that, or I'm ready for that. I would say that was more often an answer.
It's a quick
Yeah.
quick no.
Yeah, quick no.
And
Yeah.
do you have a guess or a hypothesis or a reason why you think that quick no happened?
I think probably just based on the questions, and these questions did come from the men too, is the time commitment. And just, I'm not sure how I'm going to be able to do all that, or, be that involved. That tended to be kind of, I think, the extent.
So one of the things that I think is important is that people diversify the number of investments, that it's a wide number, at least 20, preferably 40 investments. But it's really hard to sit on the board of 40 companies. So, being actively involved in 40 companies would probably not be a good answer. So in the list of angel groups and micro VCs we have in Seattle that I posted in the chat, the last four are micro VCs, which are essentially managed angel funds. There's one person, the general partner, that's writing the check, and they're collecting money from a bunch of accredited people. And so you can build a passive fund, essentially build out your engagement in a bunch of companies without any real work on your part. You just write the check and let somebody else do the work. How does that feel to you guys? Chelsea, why don't you lead off with that? How does that feel to you to do passive investment through somebody else?
I'm actually good with it, assuming it fits kind of what I want to invest in. I think that tends to be the harder part for me. It's not really, it's not really, investing through somebody that's the issue. That's actually how I do most of my investing now. But I'm very, very picky about what it is, because I really like picky about what it is, because What was your question?
Talk a little bit more about the details of that passive investment component. You're doing syndicates.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I primarily do syndicates. I really like a little bit more deep tech, and I haven't all of that. SAC I wouldn't describe as being that, but I like some of the companies we invest in. We did so in my round we did a medical device that helps with doing physical therapy for carpal tunnel, and then also for theoretically ankle conditions. And then they have hopes to maybe move for knee and shoulder. And then the second was ag tech, fertilizer that was made from organic materials, which I really like. I grew up on a farm, so I thought that was a really great thing to do, because I know how much chemicals get sprayed on things, and not a huge fan, but so I like investing in things like that. Those probably aren't exactly where I'd tend to go if I was like to raise a fund on my own. But I think I see a lot of those through more focus groups. So like E8, I think is actually seeing one of them right now. And then I think there's a talk of some med tech funding coming around again. I think that was it Wings that used to do med tech? I think they have since shuttered, but I've heard talk of there being another starting.
Yeah, Elizabeth is working with us to see if we're going to do one from a SAC perspective. There's two other groups that are pondering the question. We'll see who pulls things together.
Yeah, and
Julie,
I guess a
what do you
little
think
bit more
about,
for that. Like, I think the
part of
passive,
your-
I guess a little bit more. I was just going to add to that. So I think a little bit more about the passive. So, like EA, for example, I thought was a really great way to try and focus a little bit more, because if you're not doing this full time, it is more difficult to get deal flow, because you're not able to have those conversations all the time. I certainly am not. And there's a reason I haven't, gone and started doing syndicates or raising a fund, or, I work full time, and sometimes more than full time. And it's just it helps you utilize your time better, frankly. If you can, find a group that has the deal flow and has the expertise. And there's some really, really smart groups out there that do good due diligence.
So I think, John, you asked me the same question. I was resistant to do some of these funds because I thought I want to be involved in all of these and be able to do the due diligence and get to know the founders. And I've had a really good experience with through a group out of Mercer. It's kind of I guess a syndicate. And we've invested in an LA-based consumer product fund called Willow Fund. And I also wasn't thrilled to go into consumer product, but anyways, I put a little money in this. And I have loved the companies they've invested in. And one in particular is called Good Fair, which is out of Houston. And they're taking used clothing and they're kind of branding it and reselling it at a large scale. It's kind of more for college age kids, but check out their website. I'll post it in the chat. And so I have had some ideas. I love kind of sharing ideas with founders. And what I've done is, even though I'm not involved in the deal at that level, the fund managers in LA introduced me to the CEO, and I've kind of started, on the side, just kind of giving him feedback and thoughts from buying a bunch of things from them. So you can work your way in and be involved if you kind of raise your hand and offer your help. So it's kind of a combination, but I'm not dealing with all the details. And all of these are so early stage.
Well,
I don't know which ones will pay out. All of these are so early stage. I don't know.
Right. Nicole, how do you feel about putting your cash into a passive managed fund of some?
I think it's a great idea. It's a great way to, again, if you like the people, the other thing too, there's a benefit of like the collective energy of getting excited about a business, supporting it from a bunch of different angles. I think there's a lot of value to that. So I do a combination as well. I do direct investments when I feel I feel really strongly about or bullish about the founder or the industry. And so we've done a couple of those, and that's when I've typically known the founder quite well, because I tend not to do individual larger checks for people that I'm just meeting at this stage. And that's where I think the passive investing can be really helpful, because then you can diversify into different industries. And to Chelsea's point, when we went through SAC, I had no idea how passionate I was about ag tech. Like the company that we invested in, Julie and I took a road trip with two other investors, my neighbor Matt, who I roped into being part of SAC as well, and Court, who's an angel investor in town who does a lot of stuff with Alliance of Angels now, and took a road trip up to Vancouver and got really deep with this team, and it was really, really fun. And so I think that there's an opportunity, to Julie's point, what's nice about being an angel investor, you can choose, how you spend your time, and you can deep dive and decide if you want to advise. Another way to do this, and Minda Bruce, who is a former fund manager who now runs First Row Partners, who I mentioned with Yoko, who I mentioned earlier, she did this. She did a lot of, this was a huge proponent. She got equity for being a formal advisor to a number of early stage startups. So while she wasn't the person in town that was writing the $100,000, checks, she was on a lot of, she was part of a lot of people's cap tables, because she was basically connecting them and giving them real value from her expertise in having been a former operator herself. And so there's also those opportunities as well, as if you are both from a company perspective and getting great advice for, not a lot of money up front, right? Or vice versa, as a investor, it's a really great way to get to know companies and the people that you really feel excited about, you can invest more time in. But I agree with everyone here. It's very hard. Like, you get really excited, but it's really hard to do due diligence on all of these companies unless you're doing this full time.
Or if you have built a network of people that are working with you, so that you split the work among that group of people. So for most of us, I think that's the pathway that works.
I was just going to add one thing.
Go to Elaine.
I was just going to add one thing. Oh, just want to add one thing. I mean, I was going to say from SAC last time. So Dana Redmond was somebody that I brought on to SAC last round, and then Julie, and then Acacia, who's on here, and her cousin Geraldine. We started meeting outside of SAC regularly to talk about deal flow. And we just all really just met through SAC and really enjoyed each other's company, and definitely all had very different backgrounds. So, one person was finance, one person was more general management, Julie, and a friend of ours, Karen, as well. And so that's been incredibly helpful. And we still informally will share when we're getting pitched from different founders. We'll share, pitch deck information. We'll get on calls together. It's really helpful. And again, it just makes it much more interesting because you kind of, the angles that you may not have thought of, someone in the group inevitably will bring up.
Let me urge you to take and plant a flag on that informal group and put a web page up so that people can find you, so that we can be loud about you. There used to be a group called Seraph in town that was the first women's angel group that Sue Preston put together long ago. We do not have one of those right now where people can focus in on that process. So that would be good. Elaine, I would like to sort of give you a chance to talk to the question of how you think about active versus passive versus managed kinds of.
I think, as I think kind of Chelsea pointed out, different people have different bandwidths. We probably all gravitate to what suits us the best and what we have time for. But what's nice about Seattle is that there are plenty of options for once you graduate from SAC. I don't ever graduate, so I just kind of hang around. But in terms of going to other places, and that you will be able to find a match for you for the time you have and how you want to find your deal flow, right? Seattle Angel Conference is that, 10, 12 week time intensive, roll your sleeves up, learn as you go. You can go all the way to the other end of the spectrum, where you go into Alliance of Angels and you decide which months you want to go to lunch and which of the pitches that you might like, and go ahead and follow things up yourself. There's, networks in between. So it's definitely, there's options for everyone. I personally enjoy what we do here in SAC. That whole range is unique, from being able to see 60 pitch decks to 24 3-minute pitches to 12 10-minute pitches to 6 finalists that we hang out with for a month. And then we go behind the closed doors and bring out the big check, right? I just love that. It's a great way to really get to know. And one of the things that I really like about angel investing is keeping the pulse on new things that are happening, and new ideas. And I geek out. I got so excited about the Mars rover and the fact that there's a little helicopter on the bottom of this thing. And it's oh man, well, where else could you use little helicopter robots, right? And so just thinking about, the mindset that I get from being around all of you entrepreneurial, big idea people, and what's next and what's coming, it's really exciting to be, as Minda and Yoko say, in the first row. Right? So that part's fun. And I think, John, the nice thing is that there are different vehicles that people can use as an angel investor that fits their style, their checkbook, and how they want to participate.
Absolutely. And we have, I think now, all combinations of the different kinds of angel groups in Seattle. And so you can get to the one that fits your feeling. I feel like we're a little bit short in terms of different sectors, specific kinds of things. But in terms of the group mechanics, I think we've got all of the combinations out there. So I want to make sure I open it up so that anybody that has any questions can ask questions. So does anyone have a question they want to put on the table? No?
John, I think I have a question. John, I think I have a question.
Yeah.
I guess something I've observed over the past handful of years is the absence of kind of co-ed management teams or co-ed boards. It seems like I'm seeing a lot of, all men founder teams and all women founder teams. And it's not exactly on point to this conversation, but it is a little bit. And I'm curious whether you're making the same observations and whether it seems like there's just a massive lost opportunity there to have kind of co-ed management of a startup, the diversity of that and more, just being two different species.
I think it's more common over the last 10 years. It's more common for us to see mixed founder roles than it was before, right? I think earlier on it was typically founders that were the same sex coming through, but I think that's happening less and less. Anybody else have opinions?
I think, we've seen several husband and wife teams come through in the last few rounds. The other thing, Adam, I would say is that a lot of those stats, I think the pitch book 3% of women getting funding, those are often, there's usually a footnote that says one of the founders is female. So that 3% often includes co-founders who are male as well. So that's not just only sole female founders in that stat, which makes it even more shocking.
Right. Terrible thing. But understand that going from pre-seed to seed, not all the people that got seed get seed. All of the people that get seed don't get Series A. And it's like 60% or 66% of people funded at the seed level actually get a Series A investment. So the further up you go, the more filtered the audience, essentially. So I wonder if you looked at gender mix at pre-seed versus Series A, if you would see some kind of narrowing of the process. But in any case, I want to make sure that we get questions out there. Margie, any question you want to ask?
I'm learning a lot. This is fantastic. As an entrepreneur, a female founder who has a team of two, I have some co-founders on the East Coast and they're male. I will share with you that what Elaine mentioned earlier, that vision, one group will say, tell me what you're doing today. And another group will say, where's the vision? I want to know what you're going to do. So I think as an entrepreneur, you need to be ready for both. You need to talk about what you're doing today, but you have to have that vision. And yeah, women have to show it. And at least that's my experience. I'm in Spokane, Washington. And one of the advantages that I've had during COVID was to be able to join Seattle with WTIA. We were on the 4th cohort and a startup success out of Create 33. So I was able to get some women advisors. So you talk about those mentors. I have some amazing female mentors, thank goodness, but it's the check. And, you know, when I go into a room, it's all men. And now I'm in a space where men are very, they're taking an active role in their parents' placement in senior care. John's experienced himself. So it's not just women, but quite honestly, the space that I have, I'm a female founder of a company where the largest majority of people in senior care are female, and the people who are caregivers are female. And the so when I'm looking, I really would like females to hear my my great visionary idea to help save them time. So I'm loving this, and so very excited to be a part of this.
Thank you. Wadad, you had a thought.
Yeah, so I think we talked you know, we talked a lot about kind of the women, having women founders or female founders on in the startups, but I think one of the things that I was also learning about more is startups in general who have ideas that are really focused on female, like where the target is particularly female. So focusing more like products that really target, you know, whether it's breastfeeding or fertility, things that are more oriented toward women, and how even these get even less attention overall, simply because you know, funding in general is can be more male dominated. There's even less understanding of the size of the problem, the impact of the problem itself. So even beyond having female founders, I think targeting female problems tend to be even less funded.
So Dad, I want to jump on that, because this is why I think it's important to make sure we mix it up in the angel community, and why I don't necessarily just go to a female only group to invest, because of what you said. I think part of our role is to help our male investor counterparts understand some of those situations that they may not either be exposed to or have the ability to know. So in my first SAC, we had Tomboy X, and they did women's clothing that then they ended up focusing into women's underwear. They made the finals, but didn't get the big check. And part of that was because it was more of a consumer product, carrying inventory. Ooh, might not want to do that. But they went on to be in a sidecar fund, and they have become the entrepreneur of the year here in King County, right? So from a standpoint of how can we, what is our job within the group of 40 to help educate? There was Genevieve who came through, that's helping women menopause, and you know, from that perspective, there, as you talk about breastfeeding and other topics that, you know, everybody doesn't know them intimately as some of us. And then I think that's our job, to be able to make sure that we can help inform a larger, more diverse group to understand the need and point out how we see that as a good investment, right? Again, let's make sure we broaden it out. We don't just invest in idea, we invest in team, we invest in a good return. As Nicole said, we're not philanthropists here. We're looking for a good return. So we have a broad set of things that we're looking for, but one of those other things that we do always look for is what's the problem and what's the solution. So there's sometimes that we can help the larger group with our area of expertise understand the problem a little bit better and how it fits. So I think I would just underscore exactly what you said.
So Elizabeth, I would like to make sure that you have an opportunity to speak. Oh, even better, your 19-year-old is smitten with Tomboy X. But that's not what I intended. You've been on both sides of this thing, so perhaps this collection of people has something that they can help you with as you explore the going from entrepreneur to investor, and I presume back to entrepreneur again.
Thanks. That's a good question there. I have found that being a CEO with two male founders has meant that often after the pitch at the question sessions, the males get the questions and less about me answering them, when I probably have a better handle on what's going on than the two of them do. But so I have seen that personally. The one thing I was thinking is, as we go forward with trying to figure out whether we're doing a healthcare, life sciences, biotech specific conference, is a number of the the women who work in healthcare, sorry, a number of people who work in healthcare are often women. And so your comments earlier about pitching female things, I was wondering whether or not we might find that our demographics of people who join us for a life sciences specific conference may actually skew a little bit more female than male. And that's a data point that we'll follow and see whether or not that does come true. You're muted, John.
That'll be an interesting question. Yes, indeed. Anya, are there any questions you want to ask these lovely folks?
Yeah, maybe one. I've noticed that even I guess I'm on an echo now. Even female investors seem to ask more risk-based questions versus opportunity-based questions. That's what I found in my life of pitching. So I would just encourage that all of the women that are here tonight that are either already angel investing or considering doing it to keep that in mind as well. I'm a venture funding and investing in general is a gut-based activity. And so if we focus out the bulk of the questions on something that's risk-based versus opportunity-based, of course, we're going to feel better about, the young, white, 22-year-old boys in hoodies that are applying. And it's time that we can get that spread out more.
Yeah, 22-year-old hoodies do not pass muster here.
It's interesting you say that, Anya, because I was thinking.
Not 22, Chelsea.
Maybe the fact that women are asking the risk-based questions has more to do with being risk-adverse investors and less to do with how they perceive females leading the companies.
That's a good point. I never thought about it that way. That's possible. You're right. Yep.
I was going to say, I think the other thing is the article that Julie added talked about this bias, right? That there's still a bias with both men and women investors in terms of how women are perceived. And I will say, and Andrea, we've talked about this, right? Like, I think there's one of the things that's interesting when I talk to women entrepreneurs versus men is a lot of times men will come in like, and this again, these are broad generalizations, but there's sometimes men will come in a lot more, these massive numbers, huge hockey stick of like revenues and like, we're going to do 500 million in X amount of time. And women are much more like, okay, well, I calculated the numbers in the next 5 years and this is like, and it's this. And I'm like, whoa, like that's not a lot of money. Like you definitely can do a lot more, right? Yeah. But I think there has a hesitation, right? To not over promise and under deliver, that there is like a gender reality to that, which is kind of interesting. And I see it time and again in the different entrepreneurs that I talk to. And that does sort of set a different tone, I think. Julie and I have talked about this a lot too, because I think it's interesting, and even just in the presentations a lot of times, and sort of the sort of a question mark versus a sort of a commentary, right? When we're presenting, there's something that I can see a lot of times a difference. And I spend a lot of time coaching women on that because I do think people need to be a lot more assertive.
Yeah, it's true. I think being assertive, but then as a woman, you always have the problem when you are assertive, it's viewed as aggressive. I mean, there's so many additional hurdles, which, frankly, after doing this my whole life, and usually being the only woman in a room, like when it's in a tech company, it gets old, but at least there's a change. There's definitely, the society is changing, and I think it's really nice to see, like organizations like SAC trying to change it, and it's going to change. It's just, we have to have a little bit more patience, I think. But I've enjoyed just hearing what everyone has to say here tonight. It's been really, really eye-opening.
And Anya, I would encourage you just to kind of keep on going, because
I have to.
you know, we can't change it if we don't keep rolling, right? You know,
Yeah, right.
I have to say one of the times when I was at a Seattle Angel conference, and we were I was in a one-on-one with a female investor, or not a female investor, a female founder. You know, she said, Elaine, I just don't know if I can do it anymore. It is just so hard to raise money right now. All I do is seem to be pitching and that sort of thing. And part of it is what we have to do.
Yeah.
We have to keep going. We have to continue to get up and make sure that we have those conversations, and fund one more great idea, do one more pitch, and hopefully on my journey. So Anya, I really appreciate what you said, is that I'm going to try and be a little bit more sensitive to the portfolio of questions I'm asking, who I'm asking, and what I'm asking. So I really appreciate you speaking up on that. I hear you. And I'll try and be better next time.
Thank you. I really appreciate it. And I agree, we have to keep going. And, I will say women and, male founders too. I think if you get to the point where you can call yourself a founder, one thing is for sure, and that is that giving up is not part of our DNA, no matter what gender you have. And so, yeah, we'll keep going. I mean, the only way for me to give up is when my heart stops beating, before then it won't happen. So.
And you should, Anya, slip in how cool your product is while you're talking, because it is.
Yes. And by the way, it will be a $500 million company, and we're already talking to Herman Miller. So, starting that acquisition path early.
Love it.
I think one thing I was reading that article that you sent, Julie, thank you. Thanks, John. And I think one thing that I would suggest for women that maybe are seeing issues with pitching is try to have more one-on-ones. And I also say this as an agent who doesn't take many one-on-ones because I just don't have the time. But if you can get the one-on-one meetings and get that rapport built, it's going to be a lot easier to get that check written. So
yeah,
that's going to help you get around the pitch.
Thank you.
So there are 10% of the population that is accredited. I'm guessing that 50% of those people are women. It may actually be more than 50%. So there's a large number of people. We have almost 1 million people in King County. And so 10% of that is 300,000 people. So half of that is 150,000 women who could be writing a check. And so if you could find a way to tell your friends and neighbors that are accredited that, if they all hold hands and sing Kumbaya and write a $5,000 check, they can be changing the lives of a bunch of people and make that go. That's our mission, right? Go from 99% people not writing checks to 95% people not writing checks. So that we can change the world a little bit. But, being louder about it and talking about it would be really helpful. And one of the ways that you can help us with that is we're coming up on the deadline for applying. So we will know how many companies we have as of Thursday. And we will then switch from trying to get the 50 companies to then internally working on our internal processes, with our next public event being the final event on May 12th. So if you can help us get women who are not aware of writing checks now to come to the event on May 12th, that would be wonderful. So please, post it in your Facebook, put it on your Twitter, take a picture and put it on Instagram, and get people to be aware that they could be writing a check on sometime in the future, but learn how, watch how you are engaging in that process. That would be a wonderful help. And on that, I think we probably done a good job tonight of going through this. Our next workshop is about GUST profiles and the importance of GUST profiles on Thursday at noon. So if you're one of the founders coming through, please attend that. I think it'll be useful. We'll continue the Thursday noon workshop series, but we will stop the Tuesday events because they will turn towards companies that applied and angels engaging with each other. If you have any issues or things that we can do that will help expand the number of people that are being effective, not only the women and gender balance question, but other groups of underrepresented people, I'm all ears for how we might expand this into a broader community. So thank you very much for coming.
John, can I say one thing? You go on mute. John, can I say one thing?
Please.
You go on mute. You go on mute. No, I just want to make sure. I think there's some male founders here tonight, and I just want to make it clear that we're super excited to hear all of the pitches. And at the end of the day, we're going to vote on the best company at the end. And don't let this sway you in any way. I mean, we want to have a broader playing field and more women investors and more women pitching. But we're looking for the best company. So don't let this deter you in any way. Thanks for making it through too. Thanks everyone. Have a good night.
Thank you.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Everyone.
Great to have you all.
Good night.
Thank you. Nice to meet you.
Thank you. This was fun.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much.
Hey, John. Thanks for having this. Really appreciate it. And
Hi
I'm
there.
so excited about
Yeah.
50-50.
Yeah, it'll be really good to tell that story. We need to get that out there.
Yeah, well,